South Carolina, we're back with new perspectives. I'm your host, Professor Harvey Elwood Jr., and here with the show, as always, trying to bring some information that is interesting and informative for you as the listening audience, particularly that will be helpful to you, your family, your friends. Tonight, I'm joined by a very special celebrity guest hostess, Miss Holly Cummings, and I want to thank you for sharing your time with us, Holly. Welcome.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much. And I bow down to you because you're the special one.
The only thing good about me is knowing how to find and get you to come and help me do this. We, once again, some people might say that we've been spending an awful lot of time in dealing with the area of domestic violence, but I don't think that's the case. I think that the more information that is available, the more that we can learn, the more answers that we can find. It is about healing and repairing a very serious problem. And surely New Perspectives, our show here tonight, can't provide all those answers, nor can all of the previous shows that we've been bringing to our audience here. Are they able to do such? What we're just hoping is that by highlighting and looking at this subject area, that someone will receive information that will be helpful to themselves and their families and just a friend or a neighbor, or anyone for that matter, who has been dealing with this very severe and a serious crisis across America. Tonight, we have another one of the very important aspects of what CASA Family Services provides. And the director, or the deputy director, is that the right title for that position, is Miss Marsha Taylor. Well, Marsha, you'll give us your exact title.
I surely will. Thank you for having me.
And welcome to New Perspectives. Yes, thank you for coming.
My title is actually Treatment Services Manager, and what that encompasses is supervising the domestic violence shelter as well as the community domestic violence program. And the reason we're focusing on treatment services is because we actually service victims and survivors of domestic violence. And so our focus really is on that area, but we do a lot of things within that area, for example, including community education that deals with victims, victimization, what people need to know about what it might be to be a victim or a survivor of domestic violence.
Well, we were just talking a little bit ago about the psychology of domestic violence and, prospective clients, meeting them where they are. Can you give us a little bit of a look at what it's like from the initial stage of meeting a client and what happens after that?
Sure. We often get clients by self-referral, which means that they actually will just come to the agency on their own. They may have talked to a friend or a family member that says to them, I know a place where you can go, you should really go and get some help. So we oftentimes have people that just come in and say, I'm in this situation, I need to talk to somebody, I really don't know what to do. So often that is the first time that we really have contact with them. And what will happen then is once we receive them in that way, we talk with them. We have a staff person that will do an intake and assessment, and then usually that person from there will come to me if it's an adult, and I will see them as an adult client. And I go over the assessment, and then I talk with them. And really, one of the best ways to really know what's going on with them is just having a conversation with them. And at that point, it's key for us to listen to them and listen to what they're saying, and then having that ability to kind of read between the lines a little bit and understand where they are. And one of the things that we do know is that sometimes they really don't see themselves as a victim. They see themselves as, well, I know that something is going on that's not quite right in the relationship, but they're not ready emotionally, perhaps, to say, I am a victim of domestic violence. And so what I have actually started doing when I do go out and talk to groups, especially teenagers, I don't talk to them about domestic violence. I talk to them about healthy relationships, because that is something that they can understand. Because if you say to a teenager, these are all these signs and symptoms, and now that you've seen that, do you think you're a victim of domestic violence? And they would say no. So what I do is I talk with them about healthy relationships, and we have a checklist that we develop, which is a healthy relationship checklist. And we have them do that in a group setting, and then we go through it. And one of the examples I like to use is, if your boyfriend gives you a cell phone and he says it's this gift and he wants you to have this cell phone, and he's calling you every 5 minutes and texting you, wanting to know where you are, who you're talking to, who you've been texting. And I said, that's not love. That's stalking and tracking, because
And
what
control.
they're trying to control.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so those are the kinds of things we use to kind of get
To meet
that's
the
right.
teenagers at
Yes,
that level.
exactly. Hmm.
Would you say then that so many people who were victims of domestic violence, and as you did point out, don't actually recognize the signs and the symptoms, and then after, just say something occurs, there's a violent situation that takes place. How often, after someone comes to receive services and treatment, as well as the domestic violence partner who Mr. Lodholt spoke about last week, some of them being incarcerated, some of them finding an alternative method, which is what he provides. How many of them end up going back to their partners, I guess, is just what the question is.
Well, what I can say is that just as we work with clients and we work with them on a regular basis, we know when they come in that many of them will come in saying, you know, this is the last thing I want to do is stay with this person. I want to leave the relationship. But as time goes on, oftentimes they're talking and communicating and they're deciding, you know, I really don't want to give up on the relationship. And this may be a married couple, or this may be, a couple that's just boyfriend, girlfriend. But what happens is many of them do stay together. And so what does happen is we try to work with them, not doing couples counseling, because that's not what we do, but we work on the victim services side. I will work, or someone on the staff will work directly with the victim.
Gotcha.
And work with her, and it's usually her, to work on herself and what she has going on, and focus just on her. Because what we know is that we cannot control the behavior of anyone else. And so we have them focus on themselves, and then the perpetrator, if it's a man who is in Mr. Lodholt's group, will do the same. And they have a curriculum, as you all have learned, that they follow and work through that entire curriculum. And so they focus on that. And hopefully what we're doing with each client is working with them so that if they are going to stay together, both of them now have tools to go back into that relationship and continue to interact.
And be better prepared to function properly with each other. The courts play a major role in what you guys do. I'm aware of that. What exactly, is there a follow-up that has to come back from your side?
In some cases it is. So we interact with the court on a number of ways. We work with clients who are perhaps in need of seeking a protective order or an order of protection. And that petition hearing is heard in family court.
Gotcha.
So we have a staff member that can go to court with that person, and really it's basically for support and, to be there with them and see them through that process. Usually there's not a follow-up with that particular piece unless, for example, sometimes the person who's the perpetrator actually breaks the law by doing something that's against the court order, therefore it's contempt of court.
Gotcha.
And so we may have a client that comes back in and says he came to my house when he wasn't supposed to be there. So we would work with that client to do an additional petition, which goes back to the family court to have that case ruled back in so that the judge can then act on that particular incident. Otherwise, we also have staff that go to court, CDV court, so criminal domestic violence court. And the city of Orangeburg has...
Is that what Diane?
Yes, that's correct. That's what Diane does. And so we have staff that also go to represent victim services.
Gotcha.
So when the case is heard before the magistrate or the municipal judge, and if they are found guilty, the judge has the discretion to offer them to be able to go to alternative methods, which is Frank's program.
Gotcha.
But then we encourage the victims to come to us. Now, it's voluntary for them. They don't have to come to us, but we certainly have staff there that can talk to them.
Question.
And we encourage them.
Not to interrupt, but it's a relevant question. Out of, let's just say, 10 people who have had a domestic violence situation where the man has been mandated to go to the alternative methods program to repair his thinking and mode of behavior, how many of the women of those 10 come to receive counseling services?
I would say about half.
Okay.
And that, can vary in range. And of course, it's going to vary on what the case was and how severe the case was.
Sure.
Many of the victims will come and at least do an assessment, and we'll talk with them, tell them what services we have, and encourage them because we let them know they need support.
And let me tell you why I asked that particular question. Let's just say, hypothetically, that those 5 women, for some reason, don't go back to the boyfriends that they were with or go back to whoever they were with, but they opt not to take counseling. Is there a likelihood, and I suspect so, with no clinical background whatsoever in this particular area, I suspect that some of those women will take what has happened to them on to the next relationship.
And there is definitely that possibility.
Okay.
What we do know is that in some cases, women who have been in previous abusive relationships may end up in another one. Of course, that's not the case all of the time, but the research also shows that young women who grow up in homes where there is family violence and where they have witnessed it have a higher likelihood of ending up in an abusive relationship. Now, of course, that's not a guarantee that they will. There's no guarantee that they won't, but there is a higher likelihood that that could happen.
Because Mr. Lodholt and the police chief, Mr. Chief Bernal Davis, last week also alluded to that particular area of people who have witnessed domestic violence as growing up. And I'm so interested because I've met women and met people during the course of my life that have come out of situations of domestic violence, have received no clinical counseling, and now are unable to trust